Welcome to the Real Estate Investor Meetup. I'm your host, Matt Morrow. This is a place where knowledge is shared, friends collaborate as we help each other to succeed in both our real estate and personal goals. We are a group of like-minded individuals from across the country who are here to help and support each other. Investors, realtors, entrepreneurs, and many others contribute to providing diverse and practical content for our events. Most importantly, our mentors are looking forward to helping new and experienced investors in their journeys. Thanks for joining. We hope you enjoy the show and encourage you to bring others who may find value as we invest in our collective future. Hey everybody, great show lined up for you today. Victor Cimerol from First United Land Transfer is going to start us off talking about title and closing process, specifically as it's geared towards investors buying and selling real estate. Brian Dowler from Western Pennsylvania is going to talk about lease to own. It's a pretty unique subject. Not many guys have experience with it, but I think you'll like what both of them have to say. Really great show, and we'll talk to you soon. Oh, hey, recording's in progress. Brian Dowler.
Yeah, Brian Dowler. I'm based in Cranberry Township up here north of Pittsburgh. Have full-time W-2 job. I invest in real estate on the side. Been doing this about 3 years. Have 4 houses under contract right now. By the end of the year, we'll have 9. So I've done 11 deals in 3 years and feel like I'm just getting started.
Awesome. Liam, are you on?
Yeah, hey guys, my name's Liam Wells. I originally grew up in Easton, Pennsylvania. I actually met Matt at one of the investor meetings in Allentown, but I'm currently in Baltimore. I go to school at Loyola. I'm a mortgage broker, so I'm willing to help any investor who's looking to refi or purchase any new properties. And I'm also looking to learn and get as much information as I can from you guys who have years and years of experience on it. So glad to be here, guys.
Thanks. Hey, Wargo.
Hey, it's John Wargo. I'm in northern Colorado. I knew Matt for years in EMS. I was also a real estate investor back in North Catasauqua prior to moving out here, and now I am a full-time realtor in northern Colorado. Thank you.
Scott.
Hey guys, Scott England here. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm also related to that guy who's talking, Matt Morrow. What's up, man? Good to see you.
It's the nose.
Yeah, the Italian thing. I've been in real estate for about 20 years, and I'm excited to be doing some new things here coming in the near future. Excited to be on this call with you guys, and excited to always be learning.
Thanks. Jesse, you still have it working there?
Yes, I'm still here. Originally from the Lehigh Valley, have since migrated to Texas as a corporate pilot, and have acquired a handful of rental properties down outside of Houston. Just looking to learn more, and with Matt's invite, here to digest as much as I possibly can.
Awesome, welcome. Justin.
Hey guys, I'm a realtor and a landscape architect. I'm new to realty investing, and Matt invited me to this, and I'm here to learn. Good to meet you guys.
Great. And last but not least, Richard.
Hi, I'm Richard. I am in Central Pennsylvania. Matt was my flight instructor, and likewise, I've been doing real estate together with him back and forth over the last 3 years. And part of the meetup for the same amount of time that Matt's been doing them. So we've been kind of working this together. So looking forward to learning and meeting you guys.
And Tiernan, you just jumped in. If you want to give a quick intro, just so everybody has your name.
Yeah, hey, good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. Sorry I'm a little late. So I work with Better Homes and Gardens, Cassadon Real Estate in Bethlehem as a realtor, and also I work with the Lehigh Financial Group in Allentown, which is a commercial mortgage brokerage. So if that sounds interesting to anybody, certainly let me know. Be able to help. And again, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, dude. And without further ado, Victor from First United Land Transfer, if you want to do a little intro and then just roll right into your presentation.
Sure. Hey, Tiernan, how are you? Just saw your name.
Morning.
There. I know Tiernan, I know his dad, and especially the guys over at Lehigh Financial. Anyhow, Victor Cimerol, First United Land Transfer is our main business. We're a title agency. Me and my brother are partners. We also are part-time investors. I wouldn't consider us experts at the investing thing. We're learning as we go. We've been doing it now for about 6 years, maybe a little longer. Most of what we learned from real estate investing have been investors coming in and seeing what they're doing. And our business model has been pretty much 2-bedroom condos. That's what we just stick with. And if they're vacant, we will fix them up, paint them, new flooring and new kitchens, and try to make them upscale so we get the most rents. And it seems to work for us because our vacancy factor is really low. But on that side, first of all, Matt, thanks for including me. Wasn't quite sure what to expect. I didn't know that I was going to be the main event. I thought I was just going to come in and speak for a couple of minutes, but it's a real privilege. I got to know Matt through a fellow pilot. I'm a general aviation pilot, and one of my buddies is good friends with Matt and hooked us up, and I had the nice privilege of working with Matt on some of his referrals for title insurance. And so I will talk about what we do, and I don't want it to be a commercial about our company, but try to give information. And I'm hoping that ask questions about things that you might not be sure of, or things you might want to know about what we do. I'll talk a little bit about real quick about our company, and then what title agents do, how title insurance works in Pennsylvania. We're agents for Pennsylvania and New Jersey, so I can talk about both. Different states do it differently. So, and Pennsylvania is somewhat unique. But the role of the agent, which most of you all know, we'll search the public record. We will prepare a title commitment, which is pretty much a contract to conduct a settlement and issue title policies, an owner and a loan policy if there's a lender involved. And we're the escrow company. We collect the funds, we disperse the file, we make sure the documents get recorded, and then we issue the title policies. So when you pay the premium, the consumer pays the premium in Pennsylvania. That pays for everything that I just talked about. So we're not allowed to charge extra for that. In Pennsylvania, there's about 20 insurance companies that underwrite title insurance. And almost all of them belong to an organization called TURBOT, Title Insurance Rating Bureau of Pennsylvania. TURBOT files the rates for all the insurance companies, and the premium is based on the insured amount. So if it's a purchase price of $300,000, the policy is a $300,000 policy, and every title agent charges the same. So their filed rates, we can't deviate from them. And also in Pennsylvania, the policy is simultaneous. So the owner policy and the loan policy are included at the same time. $300,000 policy for an owner policy, if the purchase price is $300,000, I can, off the top of my head, maybe that policy might be like $2,700. I should know, kind of remember it, but I don't. The loan policy and the owner policy are included for the same price. If it's cash, the policy would be the same. If there's a loan, the policy would be the same. Where it does get a little confusing is the government makes the lenders disclose the loan policy premium, and most of the time the loan amount is less than the purchase price. So you might see a loan policy for $2,500, and then the owner policy for about $300. And basically what it is, the difference in price between the insured loan amount and the insured purchase price. So if the purchase price is like 300, the loan amount is 280,000. It'd be just a few dollars more for the owner policy. And for residential, the government makes the lenders disclose that as optional. And it's somewhat confusing to some people because I hear people say, well, it's optional, I don't need it. Or they'll say, well, the lender has title insurance, why do I have to buy it too if it's already insured? But insurance companies only will pay a claim to the insured. They won't pay a claim to someone who's not insured. So I always tell people, if you're not quite sure if you should get the owner policy, that's a conversation I can probably go into a half hour on reasons why, stories of why it would be important to get an owner policy. I know when I buy real estate, we're the title agents and we still buy title insurance. And I can talk a little bit about why and why it would make your property more marketable. Some people buy properties at sheriff sales, and you can still buy title insurance. We'll issue a title policy after the sheriff's deed is recorded. But if there are any issues with the chain of title, and there's certain things that might not go away in a sheriff's sale, but the title policy would make the property marketable when you go to sell the property, especially if the next title agent will ask for that policy if there's an issue that needs to be addressed. But as far as our company, we started our company back in 2006. My brother worked for a title agency in Philadelphia after we had a failed business. He worked there for about 3 years and found it interesting, wanted to learn as much as he could. And he did quit that company, and with the intentions we were going to start our own someday. He became a title agent. And surprisingly, back then, it was Chicago Title picked us up without any business per se, which was, I don't think they would do it today. I don't think any underwriter would pick up a title agent if they didn't have business to bring. But we had a title agency, and probably in like 3 or 4 months, we might have had 2 refinances. And so my role with the company was to go out and look for business, and everybody I talked to already had those affiliations. And I connected with Countrywide Mortgage and Wells Fargo, and they were giving us some refinances. It was the beginning of 2007. And by May of 2007, it seemed like the company was going to work because it was just the 2 of us, and we started to do well with the refinances. We knew obviously we had to work with purchase transactions. We rented an office in Whitehall. We were there for about 3 or 4 years, and then we moved over to the Frederick building in Allentown. Today we have our main office is Allentown on Winchester Road, right near Target, off of Cedar Crest Boulevard. We have another office in Bethlehem Township on Emmerich Boulevard, where there's a lot of real estate offices down there. That's kind of like Real Estate Row in the eastern part of the Lehigh Valley. And we picked up a lot of new business because of that office as well. But the one thing that we found out in growing our company was we really had to provide the service. And in order to compete, like with any business, what sets you apart? What would be your reason why someone would want to choose your company? In title insurance, there's so many real estate offices have their own title insurance company. Lenders have title affiliations as well. So that's our big competition. And the reason why we're committed to running our business in a direction where it's about the experience as well as the services that we can provide. Some offices may have like 2 people in the office if it's like a joint venture, and they will have their main office would be processed somewhere else. All the files are processed somewhere else, and they may be somewhat detached from the file. And the office that's actually doing the work and dealing with the consumer might not have the resources, where we kind of like take control over everything as far as the search and the title commitment and the whole process, where we can have the ability to provide a quick turnaround if it's necessary. Most transactions, we have 4 weeks. That's plenty of time. But sometimes things fall through the cracks, or sometimes something has to close next week. We can put a whole file together in a day. We do have the resources and the connections as well too. Tax information gets to be a little bit of a challenge when we're dealing with municipalities. But I feel our office has pretty good resources in getting a file together and having it ready. One of the things where I think it helps investors kind of need to know information about a property, especially before they buy it, or what are the title challenges? Because we have 3 examiners that work for us. They can do searches if we have to. Some of the search work we do outsource, but just to have the ability to look at something and know what are the challenges and what has to be done. What's the easiest way to get to the result, to find the title, the resolution to the title issue. Does anybody have any questions so far about what I talked about?
Yeah, Victor, I have one thing really quick. Since almost everybody on the call here, I'm just kind of doing a roll call. Everyone, we do have a few agents, but the agents are also investors or aspiring investors. Maybe if you can kind of tailor the topic of title insurance and the closing process, not necessarily that, I guess each office has the same general process when it comes to the title search and the actual closing. But if you can kind of give from an investor's perspective, the title process and the closing process as it differs if you were to just be a retail buyer for the house.
I really don't think there's that much difference in it. I think where the difference is, and probably Tiernan he'd probably have a good grasp on it, with the difference between residential investor financing and commercial financing. You could use either product for the same property, but there's a lot more leeway as far as what commercial financing can do, and where there's pros and cons, and but that's not my area of expertise. But it certainly would be helpful to know, why would you want to use in residential investor financing or commercial investor financing. But as far as the closing process, basically, we will probably 95% of our files that we get in, we will do in our search and in our title commitment. We'll talk about, it's basically the title commitment is a report of title. It has everything that's on there. In fact, let me talk about the title commitment. There's schedules, different schedules on it. My suggestion when you're buying a property or you're involved in a real estate transaction, I tell this to all realtors, to anybody who's involved. I tell the realtors to look at the title commitment because they're representing the clients. I couldn't expect the client to care about reading it or understand it. But on the first page, it's going to have the what's going on. Who's going to be the insured. It'll have the buyer, the lender if there's a loan, what the insured amounts will be, what who the current vested owner is. It might have a being clause in it, which means like what was the chain of title? How was the property acquired from, each time the property was conveyed. It might go back maybe 2 or 3 conveyances. It'll show all the requirements, and that would be on Schedule B1 are the requirements. What has to be done? So obviously the buyer has to pay the seller. The buyer has to pay for the premium. The seller has to provide a deed, has to provide, information like marital status, and all the things that would make sure that we can issue a policy and not expose our underwriter to a title claim. One of the things that title agents are, first and foremost, they're responsible to prevent and protect the client from, or the underwriter from a title claim, whereas a realtor their fiduciary is to the client. And so our fiduciary is not to the client, our fiduciary is to the underwriter to protect them and make sure that we do everything correct so that there will not be a title claim. And so those things are listed in Schedule B1. And in Schedule B2 are the exceptions, what's not included in a policy. So there's a whole list of things that are not included in a policy, like mechanics liens for an owner or tenants' rights to a property. That would not be, there's a whole taxes, future taxes that may be assessed.
Victor, I have one of our title policies that you have done for us. I have it up on the screen if the people have a screen share so you can kind of see what he's looking at.
I don't see it.
Can anyone else see it?
No.
Yep.
Yeah, rate calculator, right?
I have the rate calculator up.
That's what I see.
Let me see if I can get a title policy or
Matt, I see the title policy.
Hey, Victor.
it's not a title policy. It would probably be a title commitment, but yes, go ahead.
Victor, quick question. Do you recommend using a title company for a for sale by owner transaction?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we do that.
Right.
We do it all the time. I'm not looking to cut anybody out of making their money. I wouldn't say don't use an attorney or don't use a realtor. But there are times, especially like a family member wants to buy a property. And especially when the lender is absolutely going to make them get title insurance. Or a neighbor might buy the house and they made the deal, but they just don't know what to do. Or an investor, talking to somebody and they were getting ready to sell their house. Absolutely. We do not need an agreement of sale. Basically, the items that we need, it's always nice to have a contract to follow just to cover ourselves. But the things that we really need are the seller to sign a deed and the buyer and seller to sign a settlement statement. And we can insure it then. So I hope I answered your question.
Yes, I was just thinking in terms of if the purpose of the title company in part being to warrant or guarantee the validity or the efficacy of that title. When people are transacting business where the title the title is known to say be in the family and they're just subdividing parcels, then I'm kind of wondering if they need to go through that process with a title company in order to exchange or transfer the deed.
Are you talking about separating parcels or?
Yeah,
Um, Well, there are times, that probably would be a question for our examiner.
okay,
There's times where we'll see, it's common to have multiple parcels on one deed. And basically what happens is those parcels can be deeded out. And that's one of the things you want to make sure that they're done correctly, because in the future, we'll see people buying land, and it was done 20 years ago, and there's multiple parcels, but one of the parcels was not conveyed out properly. And then we'll have to go back to the correct parties to have them convey a quitclaim deed. And sometimes it might not even be caught with some examiners, and they just go by what the information was there. One of the downsides to our company is we do catch a lot of stuff. Our examining team, they're very thorough, and sometimes it's a good thing, because we like to think that we're doing our work correctly and preventing any problems in the future. The challenge gets to be is when these problems get old, it's harder to resolve an issue. One of the most common things we find, especially in residential real estate, is prior owner mortgages. We see it practically every day with title orders. There were a mortgage back in 2004. They refinanced it as the rates were coming down. And these loans don't get satisfied at the public record. So the mortgage doesn't get removed; it gets satisfied. So that the mortgagee, the lender, would prepare a satisfaction piece and send it to the county to have that mortgage released. And what happens is they're not done, they're not recordable, there's a mistake, they send it back, it gets put onto a pile, and it never gets dealt with. The bank gets sold a few times, the bank's out of business, and here it is 30 years later. And there's an old mortgage from 2 owners ago. Typically what we'll do is we'll go to if the owner has a title policy, we'll go to the owner and we'll ask for that policy and get an indemnification letter, because if there is a title claim, that policy would have to indemnify the next policy. And that's one of the reasons why title insurance is always a good thing. If you're not quite sure, is it worth spending a few $100 more to get the owner policy? Absolutely. Also, if you're paying cash, we cannot, we're not attorneys, so we cannot prepare a deed and prepare legal documents and convey a property without issuing a title policy. Under the insurance rules in Pennsylvania, we are allowed to prepare the documents associated with the transfer of real estate if we're issuing a title policy. A lot of people will tell me, they'll come back, they'll say, I bought the property 3 years ago, but I want to add my son to the property. But they don't want to buy title insurance. Understandably, why would they want to? Why would they don't need to? But we can't prepare a deed and have them have it recorded without issuing a policy. But if it's a family member, like you were talking about, that's buying the property from their family, and now they're the new owner. So if they just prepared their own deed and had it recorded, that broke that chain of title. So now if there are any title issues in the past, there is no policy to go back to get the indemnification, if that makes sense.
that's great. Great information. Thank you.
So, if somebody ever, I tell the people in my office, so what happens is, and most title agencies work this way, the larger title agencies, the title order will come in, it will be handed off to one person in the office, we call the processor. And what that processor does will put in all the information about the whole file, property address, buyer, seller, lender, contacts, order a search, order tax information, everything that we need to get things going. So then the examiner will get get the abstract and prepare the title commitment. Everything goes out. But that processor is the central point in the transaction. The smaller title agencies, that central person might do the whole thing, might conduct the settlement as well. We don't have our processors do settlements because typically settlements happen on Fridays. Not quite sure why Friday is the day everybody likes. I'm not quite sure why the last day of the month, the last Friday of the month is the day everybody wants. But you come to any title agency's office on the end of the month on a Friday, it's going to be very busy. But what we do is we have our own staff conduct settlements, as well as actually our business development team will do settlements, as well as try to go out and get new business. And then our processors will be the main person. And so if they have, each processor might have like 5 files to close on a Friday, and the loan docs come in Friday morning, they can't be dealing with customers and clients conducting settlements and watching the packages come in and making sure everything happens. That's the reason why we do things like that. Any other questions? No? Okay.
Victor, I have one quick thing. I know Brian has a presentation he's going to be starting here shortly, excuse me, on the lease to own subjects, but I was wondering if you could kind of explain. I know we've talked personally about several of our deals in various aspects, from financed properties to cash deals, the speed in which a title policy can be done for a purchase, where there might be any liens or thing in the background. A lot of the guys here are going to buy off-market properties. What are some of the risks and some of the things you could find when you're looking at properties that are not listed and fully disclosed by the seller?
Well, you know, it's really easy to find out. Send me the property information, and I'll have, in fact, sometimes when we get title orders in, especially in counties where we don't have strong resources, for some reason, we seem to be getting a lot of title orders up in the Scranton area. There tends to be, it seems like there's investor opportunities up there. And, but they do come with a lot of title challenges. So, and with a low dollar premium, and it's not the work we're kind of looking for, but we still don't like to say no. You know, we like to be the title company that says yes to things whenever we can. But what we'll do is I'll just send a quick email to my senior examiner. And in fact, Matt, I've always told you, you know, send the email to me, include Tanya, and Tanya will get the information. Our senior examiner, she's been with us now over 10 years, but she used to have a search company. She searched, I think she offered searches for about 20 different states and operated at a pretty high level. And then she moved to Des Moines, Iowa, and closed her business and was looking for work. And we were fortunate to be able to hire her. And she's a real big part of our business. One of the reasons why we have the resources to get things done. We don't rely on other companies to at their mercy to, you know, get us the information, you know, when we need it. We just do it. But if you have a property, just send me an email and I'll forward it off to Tanya with a question, and you know, she'll look it up or put someone on it to get the information that's needed. So, but yeah, it's, you know, it's either insurable or it's not. If there are title issues, you know, we'll tell you what the title issues are. The things that I will say, or the one thing when you're buying tax sale, the upset sale, you're not getting title insurance. So I won't say stay away from it, but you know, clear and marketable title has a value to it. And if you buy from an upset sale, you know, you're gonna At the very least, an insurance company will not look at it for the first year. I know our two underwriters, we have Chicago and Old Republic. They are the largest in the first two largest in the country, in the world, actually, title insurance, title underwriters. They will not look at a tax sale for between 2 and 3 years. They'll take a look at it, and case by case, they will they might make a decision. The way, actually, when you do get a tax sale, there's two ways to clear title to resolve the issue. A quiet title action, which costs money with an attorney and probably around 6 months. And then the other one, the best solution is a quitclaim deed from the person that lost the property at tax sale. And sometimes they're willing to sign it, and sometimes maybe a little bit of money might work for them to convey a deed. But that would make the property marketable then. But title issues that may appear, there's different ways to resolve them. And the last resort obviously is quitclaim deed, which again, it's money and time. I'm sorry, not quiet title action. Forgive me. Quiet title action is going to be time and attorney fees. But yeah, send us the information. We'll. It only takes us, a couple of, probably within a few hours, we can have that information back to you, what's needed. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Victor. Anybody have any questions for Victor on the information he presented so far?
Matt, I don't know how much time you wanted me to spend, but I could quick show you our rate calculator since it's up on the screen.
Yeah, let's see it if you don't mind. Take 5 minutes or so, and I think Brian has about an hour-long presentation for his lease-to-own subject. That'd be good if you want to show us the rate calculator. And
I can do this in less than 5 minutes, and we'll be done. Can everybody see the rate calculator here? Yes?
Yep, it's up.
Yes.
So if you go to our website and then you click on rate calculator there, it comes up. So we are agents in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. We hope before the end of the year, we might be licensed in Florida. We have 2 Florida processors who are working on getting their Florida license. And my brother has a Florida license, but he's not a resident there. So we need a resident agent before we can have an office. But you'll see, if you just work down and put in the information, and it defaults to Pennsylvania. You could select New Jersey, which New Jersey is not all-inclusive. Everything is itemized. In Pennsylvania, I always say, like, I'll talk about Pennsylvania, it's all-inclusive. So all the things that I talked about, the search, examination, title commitment, conducting the settlement, escrowing the funds, recording the documents, and issuing the title policy is included when you pay the premium for the owner, either the owner or the loan policy. We have to issue a policy. So let's put a purchase price of $300,000 like we talked about, and a loan amount of ASA 80%, $260,000. If the loan amount was $300,000, there would not break apart the loan policy and the owner policy. It would be one price because it would be based on 300. But what this calculator will do is we'll give the loan policy based on this amount, the 260, and then the owner policy with an additional $40,000 of coverage, if that makes sense. Now it talks about enhanced coverage or the standard coverage. It defaults to standard. Has anybody heard of the enhanced policy? There are title agencies that will default to that. The premium is 10% of the standard policy, 10% higher. We don't default to that. It's another conversation I could have with you. I know our underwriters want us to promote it. if someone wants to have a conversation about it. It covers, it allows for an increase in value of the policy over 5 years. It allows for some post-closing issues as well. But it's not something our office actively promotes, but we will offer it if somebody wants it. So you'll see it's defaulted to the standard coverage. I always tell people, select the county. And the reason for that are the counties in our area, like Lehigh, Northampton, Bucks, Montgomery, Monroe, Carbon County. All the municipalities, the transfer tax are the same everywhere. So it's 2% in most of the counties in Pennsylvania. 1% goes to the state, 1% goes to the municipality. But let's just say you select Berks County, and if it was the counties that I talked about, and you clicked on other municipalities, it won't give you an option. But here, Berks County, Reading Municipality, Reading City, has a higher transfer tax rate. And that's why I'll say use the county if you're not quite sure what the transfer tax. Chester County has higher transfer tax rates in certain municipalities. Berks, Schuylkill, I believe. Scranton is a higher tax rate, transfer tax rate. And, but anyhow, the endorsements. So this is only lender coverage. If there is no lender involved, do not select any endorsements. If there is a lender involved, they will always look on some of your old HUDs or Alta statements. On the buyer side, you'll see the 3 endorsements. This is only lender coverage: 100, 300, and 900. Every lender will require that. They also will require a closing protection letter, CPL, CSL, they call it. That's $125. The endorsements are $100 each. So I just clicked on submit. And if you look at the top here, so we can go down. If you look, you see 300,000 and 260. This is lender coverage. So this is, if someone declines the owner policy and only gets lender coverage, this is what they will pay, the total right here with our office. These 4 fees here, the 3 endorsements and the closing service letter, are filed with the Department of Insurance. They must be charged. Every title agency must charge it. And be careful, some title agencies where they're national companies, they might not know Pennsylvania. I see it all the time. They don't do title premium correctly, and they probably fix it on the back end, but they don't charge the consumer correctly. But this is what has to be charged. It'll be the lender coverage, the closing protection letter, and the 3 endorsements. These 2 fees right here, and that's what sets one title agency apart from others. Settlement fee, not required. Tax certification, we have this is our secure email fee, $25, and we buy tax information. I think we probably pay on average like $60 to buy the information. We charge $45. We have $70 worth of non-required fees. Most title agencies, if I see a settlement sheet, I can show you fees that are not required, but everybody, every company deserves to get paid for what they do. I would say most title agencies are about $300 to $500 on top of the required fees. If you look down here, this is not a cost of title. It's record the deed and record the mortgage, $92,172. It takes into consideration an average of 26-page mortgage and a 4-page deed for each county. This calculator will know what the counties charge. And then the transfer tax, if it's split. I always tell people, especially on the investor stuff, the bank-owned properties, they will put in their contract, and you might not see it until it comes to settlement day. Buyer pays all the transfer tax. So the lenders are pretty sharp about this. They'll always read the contract, but the transfer tax will get paid. Our calculator will disclose half of it on the buyer and half to the seller. You can see seller fees right here. And then down here, you see the owner coverage. So that was the difference in $40,000 worth of coverage to the owner, $228. Make sense to everybody? Any questions on that?
Oh, that's great. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions for that I could answer on? Okay, Matt, thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody have any last minute information or questions for Victor before he checks out? And just a quick plug to him. We've done virtually all of our closings through First United. I have experience with our title agencies, and it's been interesting to say the least. But since we started using these guys for properties in this part of the country in Eastern PA, hands down the best experience so far. They've been really good. Caught stuff that I didn't catch, saved my ass a few times in a few different scenarios. So just give them a shout out or consideration if you have any needs that way. But Victor, I really appreciate you coming on today and explaining some of this to the guys. And
you know, the one thing I can tell everybody, I'm always available on my cell phone, so feel free to call me if you have any questions on a particular property. My mobile number is 610-442-5299. My email is victor@firstunitedclosing.com.
I'm going to send that in the group chat if you're okay. So everybody can write it down if you're okay with that.
Sure, I appreciate that. Yeah, feel free. I don't mind at all. If I don't pick up, I always pick up whenever I can, but send me a text message. I'll get back to you really quick. No cost for any information if you need, like information on a particular property. It always makes us feel good if we can be helpful.
All right, guys, Victor's information's in the chat box there if you want to copy it, if you have any need for it. Awesome.
Thanks, Victor.
Thanks again, Victor. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Yep. See ya. And Brian, if you just want to roll right into what you have here for lease to own.
Yeah, so I don't know if Victor has to stop sharing first.
Okay, let me just see here. Not sure where you were sharing the screen. Stop sharing. There it is.
Okay. And I need to start sharing. Share screen. I'm going to go to screen 2. Let's see. When I go into present mode on my PowerPoint. Okay, are you guys seeing my PowerPoint slide?
I don't.
No, I see Victor.
Okay.
Now I see you.
Yeah. Let's see if I can fix that. It has something to do with sharing 2 screens or having presenter mode. I think I got to turn that off. Toggle subtitle, see all slide, display settings, duplicate slideshow. Now you see it? You seeing a slide?
Negative.
Not yet, Brian.
All right. I'm used to Teams and not Zoom, so there's something going on here. I am sharing screen to, what if I share the PowerPoint? So now you're seeing, if I go into present mode, are you seeing a big slide or are you seeing 2 small slides?
We're seeing your screen, big or a small slide with some notes.
All right. There's something going on funky here, so I'm just going to go with this.
Looks good now, Brian, whatever you did.
Yeah, it's going to have this stuff on the side, but we won't worry about it. Hopefully it's big enough for everybody to see. All right, so thanks, Matt, for inviting me to speak, and I'm glad to speak about something I've been getting into in the last year. That's called lease to own investing. I'm going to explain what it is and some of the ins and outs of it. By no means consider myself an expert. I'm just learning more about it as I go along. I love the model, and it's interesting to me. I don't know how many Bigger Pockets podcasts I've listened to, And you never hear people talk about this, but we're going to talk about it today. So this may be the first time some of you guys have heard about this, and I'll be interested to hear what you think about it when we're done. So when you look at real estate investing, there are a lot of niches, and I've got three of the main ones here: quick cash, buy and hold, and cash flow. So what I would call a quick cash method would be wholesaling, flipping, maybe trying to turn something around really quick. It's a good way to make money fast. It's a good way to make money if you don't have money to start. It's a little bit risky because you can't control the market. So you could buy a house to wholesale or to flip, and then while you're flipping it, the market could go down and you're left holding the bag. Maybe you're using hard money. So something to think about. Buy and hold, most of us know that. It's slow, boring, but it's predictable and it works. Typically in most markets, homes have been appreciating 3.6 to 3.8% a year, a lot more than that in the last year or two. If you're just putting 20% down, you need 25% capital to invest with closing costs. But you can burn, try to pull your money back out. So that's buy and hold. A cash flow, lease to own, is what I call cash flow investing. And really it's different than both of the above. And part of it is selling the emotion and psychology of home ownership. So you're renting to people, but you're giving them an opportunity to buy. So here's how it works. It combines a lease agreement, you're renting, with an option agreement. So you have a lease agreement, you put people in your house, they are renters, but then there is a separate option agreement that gives them the right to buy that property in the future. And when you combine those two, you get what's commonly known as lease to own or rent to own. And you think about psychology, and we'll get into that a little bit more later in the presentation. People rent a house, but they own a home. So you're putting a renter in a house, but mentally you're creating a situation where they feel like they're owning the home and they have home ownership. Now, you have a standard lease agreement and you have an option agreement. The option agreement references the lease, but the lease agreement cannot reference and should not reference the option agreement. So if you took the option agreement off the table, it would be basically a standard lease. I have switched over to something called a Pennsylvania plain language lease. I got that free from my attorney, Brad Dornish in Pittsburgh. They're happy to give that out to anyone that asks. In Pennsylvania, due to the way the magistrates work, it's best to have a plain language lease, not one that's got a lot of big words and things that are difficult to understand. The occupant is a renter. They don't buy the house until they can afford to buy the house. And one common misconception is that, you're the bank. You're not the bank. You're putting them in a situation where they have the opportunity to save up money, fix their credit, have enough history and a job to qualify for a loan. And at that point, they'll buy the house using conventional bank financing. If the occupant defaults, it's not a foreclosure because they have not purchased the property. You're just kicking them out like you would any other renter on an eviction. And what I've been told is that if you do 10 of these properties, the first 3 years, you might drop one of the 10 buyers each year. So about 30% of buyers may drop out after 3 years, and then it's pretty stable. So if they stay in it in 3 years, by that point, they've either bought the home from you or they'll stay there for a long time. There are people that put these things out there and the people move in. under a right to buy, and they live there a really long time and never buy the house, which is great. And I'll show you why it's great and why it's better than a traditional rental. You do get a down payment. That's different than a standard rent where you might get 1 or 2 months up front, maybe first month's rent and a security deposit. You're actually getting a down payment on the house. And if they walk away, then they lose the down payment. Then you put a new occupant in there, you get a new down payment, and you can reset the rents and stuff at that point. So even when people walk out of this, it's not that big a deal. It's basically like losing a renter and putting a new renter in the property. Let's talk about the option agreement. That's what is different that we have to sort of wrap our heads around. Most of us understand a standard lease and what those terms are. So you've got that down payment, and typically it's 3 to 5%. If someone goes to a bank and they get an FHA, Fannie Mae loan, they're going to pay typically 3 to 5% as a down payment. So you might be targeting 3%, you might be targeting 5%. There are people that do this that go even higher down payments. And if someone really wants to move into your house and they appear to be a little bit higher risk, maybe they have a job that you think, will they really be able to stay in that job or whatever? If they have the money, you can ask for a bigger upfront down payment. That's not uncommon. I'm typically doing 3 to 5%. If it's a $100,000 house, you might do $2,900 or $3,900 down payment. Then what this option to buy agreement does, it gives the occupant the right to buy 1 to 10 years after occupancy. You require them to stay in the property for at least 1 year. And then after that 1 year is up, they can buy. And typically it's 5 or 10 year term. You used to be able to do these for 30 years, but now that we have this thing called the Dodd-Frank law, you cannot do that anymore. So I'm doing 10-year terms, and then if they don't buy the house in 10 years and they want to renew it, then you could raise the price of the house and lock them into a new 10-year contract, or at least you could do a 10-year contract. The price of the house can either be fixed, or you could escalate based on a certain percentage a year. I'm doing a fixed price, and I'll show you what I'm doing. There are some people that escalate the price of the house. I'll show you an example of that toward the end of the presentation. There are big companies doing this, like Home Partners of America, and they actually escalate the price of the house every year. Another thing that people that have been doing this for a while, there are people doing it wrong because they're giving option credits. An option credit is this: hey, every month you pay on time, then I'll knock $100 off the price of the house. It sounds great, but you are not allowed to do that under Dodd-Frank law anymore. So you have to be really careful about that. It's a shame because it's a great incentive for the owner occupants, but you're just not allowed to do that anymore. Here's the thing I love. Under the option to buy agreement, it requires the occupant to take full responsibility for maintenance. Now, we all know a big thing for investors is we hate the maintenance. We hate those calls, the plumbing, this, the wiring, that, the kitchen cabinets fell off the wall. I had that happen once. So you can't force a tenant in a lease to be responsible for all maintenance. You have to provide water. You have to provide power and heat, for example. You can do things like nuisance clauses where they take care of maintenance up to the first $100 or X amount, in return maybe getting $100 off the rent, but you can't force them to be responsible for the big ticket items. you can put that in the option to buy agreement. So if the hot water heater goes out, they call you and just say, hey, my hot water heater quit working. You're like, well, go back and read your agreement. You're responsible to fix that. What if I don't fix it? Well, then you lose the option, you lose your down payment, and you lose the right to buy the house. If you just want to stay in there as a renter, I'll put a new hot water heater in for you, but you can't buy the house anymore. So that's how the option to buy agreement, you can put things in there that you cannot put in the lease. So, and what I tell people is, it's just like you buy from the bank. When my hot water heater breaks, I don't call PNC Bank and tell my mortgage guy there, hey, my hot water heater quit working. He'd just laugh and say, call the plumber. I'm not taking care of that for you, right? It's the same here. It's almost like you're the bank, but you're not financing the deal. So they understand that they're responsible for maintenance. Well, what do they get in return for that? They also get to treat the house as though they bought it from the bank. If they want to paint, they can paint. If they want to put in new flooring, they can put in new flooring. If they want to rip out a wall, they can rip out a wall and open up the house. I really don't care, as long as if it requires a permit. I put in my right to buy agreement, I want to see that approve anything that's big enough to require a permit. But I just put a woman in a lease-owned house and I fixed the basement up, painted it, put new lighting in so it's nice and bright. She goes, one of my boys might be interested in moving down into the basement. I said, fine, put up walls. I don't care. Have an electrician come in and wire it up like a bedroom. That's up to you. You can do that if you want. You know, I really don't care. So they have the right to treat the house as a home. And so to them, it feels like they bought the house from the bank, even though they don't own it yet. And so they treat it as a home, not as a house. So they can fix that up. In the option to buy agreement, we have a clause in there that gives us 1031 exchange participation rights. So when they agree to buy, they have to cooperate with us on a 1031 exchange. And another cool thing is when they go to buy, they have to pay all closing costs, transfer, tax, everything Victor talked about. You know, they're going to pay for that. So it's great for me as an investor. So here's the overall premise. What are we gaining as investors? We're increasing the short-term cash flow. And I'm going to show you how that works and some graphics on that in just a minute, and you'll understand that. We are getting appreciation. In my case, I'm locking in a fixed amount of appreciation. I'm not leaving it up to the market, right? I'm saying I want a certain amount of appreciation that I want to capture in this house. So I'm selling it at this price. Now that I'm locking that in, I really don't care if they buy it in 1 year or 10, I'm getting that appreciation. And, you know, I'm giving up the potential of maybe it going up a lot more than that, but I'm taking away of the risk that it may go down or not appreciate as fast as I think. So I'll typically what you do is you price the house above what it would appraise for today, but maybe where it would appraise in 3 to 5 years. And you're locking that price in. Again, I'll show you some graphics on that in just a minute. So this is sort of like a cross between a quick flip with limited and no rehab and a traditional rental. You're keeping it for several years. You're not selling it in a few months, but you're not putting a lot of money into the rehab. And I'll get into that a little bit later. You're capturing that appreciation in a few years instead of over a very long term. You're not buying this house and intending to keep it for 30 years. So I buy houses in Cranberry Township where I live. It's a great market. There's a lot of appreciation. I'm keeping those as rentals. I'm doing lease to own in towns a half hour away from me along the river, Baden, Beaver Falls, Monessen, where the appreciation is not that good. And so I really don't want to necessarily keep a house for 30 years. It's also a great model to use other people's money, and I'll go into that in a minute. So who are our target customers? A third of the people who want to buy a house cannot get a loan today. That doesn't mean that they're a high risk. It doesn't mean necessarily that they've done anything wrong. Well, why is that? There's the 3 Ds: death, disability, and divorce. People go through a medical issue, they go through a divorce. The woman I just put in my home in Beaver Falls, she just went through a divorce. She's an airline stewardess, and when she's flying, she makes almost $70 an hour. But when COVID hit, guess what? She didn't work for a year. Her credit took a hit. She went through a divorce. That didn't help. So her credit score is in the low 500s, but she works part-time and makes $68,000 a year. So, you know, that's a pretty good candidate for a lease to own. She can't get a bank loan today, but she probably can in a couple of years. People who are self-employed, they don't have 2-3 years of W-2s. A lot of banks won't loan to them. I talked to a guy not too long ago who is a contractor, and he's working for a company right now making $2,000 a week, and he can't get a bank loan. So there are people out there making really good money that can't get a loan at the bank right now. Low credit's okay. You know, you prefer 670 or up, but we don't look as closely at that as we might on a straight rental. You're looking for good, stable employment, at least 18 to 24 months. This is big to me. No past evictions, good rent payment history. And what they teach you is that even a bankruptcy is okay if it's for the right reason. What's the right reason? Death, disability, divorce. What's the wrong reason? Anything else, pretty much, right? Here's another cool thing. They are typically willing to pay 10 to 15% more on rent just because you're giving them the right to buy. That boosts your cash flow. And who are you targeting? John Burley, the guy that teaches how to do this, that I went to his place, he calls them lunch pail Joes, typically blue collar guys, families, plumbers, contractors, roofers, and they're willing to buy fixer-upper properties, and that's key. You can still buy off-market properties that need work, but unlike flipping, you don't have to do everything to make that house, you know, like that you would sell on the MLS. So a little bit more about that in a second. So you're buying off-market, and you're capturing appreciation without doing all the work that you would normally have to do to get that appreciation. What locations are you targeting? We often B, C, and D class neighborhoods. A is $500,000 houses, and it's hard to buy those and get cash flow. B is blue collar, good neighborhoods. C is a step down from that. D is a war zone. Normally, we're investing in B and C neighborhoods as investors. Some people do Ds. I won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. John Burley says this: would you be comfortable living there yourself? Maybe not today, but 10 years ago. If you lived there and your wife had to drive up on a Tuesday night, would she be comfortable with that? That's the kind of neighborhood you're looking for. He jokes that if people are jogging in the neighborhood, it's too nice. And if they're running in the neighborhood with purses, it's not nice enough. So you're looking for something in between. So really, you're looking for B class properties. You're looking for 3-bed, 2-bath, everything but the white picket fence. Here's an interesting thing. If there's a place to park a truck or tractor cab overnight, you could add $200 a month to the rent. And I think that's true for a straight rental. Guys that drive trucks hate having to park their truck, drive a car home, drive their car back to the truck depot, leave their car there. I'm closing on a house Monday in Baden that I'm intending to do lease to own on, that I know the driveway is 16 inches thick because the guy that lived there used to drive a tractor trailer cab. So I can advertise that if I put that out there as a lease to own. Fenced in yards are great, and they don't mind fixing it up. Dad wants to be a hero. These are blue collar guys that know how to fix up a house. Mom wants it painted her color. She wants it done her way. It gives them a chance to do that. When people move into a rental, they have to ask you, can I paint this room a different color? Can I do this? They don't feel like it's their home. They feel like they're in a house. You're wanting them to feel like it's in a home. So let's break down the numbers a little bit. Let's look at a traditional rental. And these are numbers that I could get around here in the Pittsburgh area, where I could very easily buy a $100,000 house and get $1,000 a month in rent. Now you could probably spend less than that on a house and get $1,000 in rent, or you could spend more, but I know I could do that pretty easily. As an investor, I put 20% down, plus I've got $4,000 in closing costs or holding costs. So I'm in at $24,000. And now maybe this house needs a little bit of rehab. A couple rooms need carpet. It needs some painting, a little bit of lighting. So I need to put $6,000 in. So let's just say I'm $30,000 of my own cash in on this house. As a straight rental, my expenses are going to be around $800 a month. $500 for my PITI, $100 for insurance. That's probably a little high, but just bear with me. Every block here's $100. I'm trying to get the principle across. We're not going to get down to the pennies here. If you want a property manager, that's going to be another $100 if you're not managing it yourself. I always take 10% and I put in a maintenance reserve. So out of that $1,000 rent, you see half of that's going to my PITI, 10% to insurance, 10% to maintenance, 10% to property management. So I'm cash flowing $200 a month. That's 8% year one cash on cash return. That's not too bad. I'm buying a few houses now that I'll be in that 8 to 12% year one cash return. And we know as investors, it'll typically get better every year because the rents increase and the PITI stays about the same. At least your mortgage payment does. What about a lease to own? Well, now instead of $1,000 a month in rent, because it's a lease to own and people feel like it's a home and not a house, they will typically be willing to pay 15% above market rate on the rent. So now I'm adding another $150 rent to my cash flow. I still need my PITI and my insurance, but I'm getting a $3,900 down payment. Let's just call it $4,000. And guess what? I'm not putting that $6,000 into the rehab. I'm going to advertise this as a handyman special. They can tear up the carpet if they want. They can paint if they want. In fact, Burley says, whatever you do, don't paint the house. Guess what? Now I'm getting another 15% cash flow, but I'm also getting another 20% because I don't need property management and I don't need a maintenance reserve. So my cash flow now went from $200 to $550 per month. I'm getting a 33% year one cash on cash return. And that does not include loan pay down. It doesn't include the appreciation you're capturing into the sale price. It doesn't include the tax advantages of depreciation. So if you're interested in getting a lot of cash flow and quitting your W-2 job, you say, well, maybe I could get there with 10 rental houses or 12 rental houses. Maybe you could get there with 4 lease to own properties. So as an investor, if that doesn't get your attention, something's wrong with you. So traditional rental, lease to own, look at the extra cash flow. So that's what's happening. Well, how are you getting that extra cash flow? With the allure of home ownership. Here's the gamble you're taking. You're betting that a motivated, responsible resident can earn a living, and the husband and wife together can keep their family fed, clothed, and housed. Now, normally that's a good bet. It's a little bit different story for a rental. They're not as motivated as when they feel like this is their home, right? Most blue collar workers want a home they can own and live in for a long time, like mom and dad. My mom and dad have been in their home that they built since the 60s. My dad will be 90 next month. So he's probably been in that house for 65 years. And that's really what people want. They want stability. They hate moving around every 2-3 years when the rent goes up too much or whatever. And you can increase the rents on these too. You don't have to lock the rents in. So in fact, you can build that right into the contract. Typically, both parents are employed 5 to 10 years in the same job. They may be self-employed. They can't get a bank loan right now until they get a few more years under their belt of earnings history, especially if they've started a company. And they typically will buy 3 and 4 bedrooms. I think Burley says 1 out of 10 he might buy a 2-bedroom house, but he's 90% buying 3 and 4 bedroom houses. There's a psychology here. So when you're talking to people, you know, you're not misleading them. You want to be 100% honest and done right. This benefits everybody. You're not taking advantage of people. Now, there are people that do this in such a way that it's predatory. I know a realtor not far from here who buys really crappy houses for $10,000 and puts people in them, and every month they miss payment, she penalizes them, and then she structures it in a way that very few people can ever buy the house. I have no intention of doing that, and I know Kathy and I don't. We intend every person we put in that house to buy the house. The lady I moved in the house in Beaver Falls loves the house. She can't wait until she can buy it. She's excited. She feels like she owns the home. So, and so to mom, you know, you talk about a 1-year option or 10-year option. It's like going to a bank and getting a 30-year loan. All they know is that they're moving into this house and they're allowed to paint, fix it up, do what they want. So when they come look at the house, what they tell you is most of us as guys, we focus on the man and we're focusing on the wrong person. The woman is the one who 90% of the time will make the decision. She'll tell her husband, we're getting this house. The kids are coming in and they're going, this is your room. That's going to be my room. Don't stop them. Once they start talking about whose room is whose, then you're just sinking the hook and making the sale there. So you advertise these for sale by owner, easy qualifying, low money down, fixer upper. When people read fixer upper, they don't always think, oh, I got to do work. They're thinking, I'm getting a good deal. I don't mind doing some work. In fact, I'm sick of living in rental houses that I can't do anything when I'm a blue to do this stuff. So you typically advertise these as fixer uppers, carpet layer special, roofer special. You put signs up in the neighborhood when people drive by. It implies that you even put on their motivated seller. Yeah, we're motivated. We don't want the house to sit there empty another month. We want to get somebody in there. And this brings people in and you start talking to them. 90% of your applicants will have been turned down by a bank in the last 3 months, which is an interesting statistic, I think. What you do is you focus on the monthly cost, not the buying price. So when they call you up and they say, how much is this price? You say it's $11.99 a month. How much is the house? You say it's $11.99 a month. And then the second or third time they go, well, what's the price on the house? Then you say, well, the price is $124.9, but I'm locking that price in for 10 years. So let me tell you how this program works. And you start talking them through. There are people who will actually go to the closing table and not even ask you what the price of the house is. You tell them what it is per month and they have a right to buy it. I don't necessarily think you ought to do that. I think you need people to understand what they're getting into. So I always sit down and explain the terms and everything with them. Make sure they understand what's in the right to buy agreement, that they're doing the maintenance, that they're allowed to fix it up, etc. They say you should have an open house so you have multiple occupants there at the same time. That's true of a rental. It's true of a lease to own. You get multiple people there. In fact, they say you should stand there with a contract open on a table. And if somebody comes up and says, I'm interested, you very loudly go, oh, so you're interested in getting this house, right? Then the other people in the back bedroom, they hear that. Then all of a sudden they're getting more interested. So it's not anything different than a store does to get your attention. They advertise, they put it out there. They have a door opening special on Black Friday and a bunch of people go in the store at one time. You're creating an atmosphere where people feel like they're buying a home, right? Done properly, everybody wins. The person the seller of the house, the person you're buying the house from wins, because with this kind of cash flow, I can pay more for a house than a flipper. Actually, just as a buy and hold investor, I can outbid a flipper. But if you're doing lease to own, you can not just outbid the flipper, you can outbid the buy and hold investor. You can there are people doing this, buying houses right off the MLS, paying above asking price and making double-digit returns. I mean, you saw 33%. That's a house you could buy right off the MLS here in Pittsburgh. The occupant of the house, I call them occupant owners, they win. They get a house that they can fix up. It feels like their own home. They have the pride of home ownership. And guess what? It's a win for you as an investor, not just because of the returns, but when people feel like it's their home, they're not going to tear it up. They're going to take care of it. Even if a few years something happens and they have to move out and default on their right to buy, they've probably taken pretty good care of that house. So what I've heard is that it's very rare to put someone in a lease to own property and have them not take good care of the house. If that happens, it's not necessarily intentional, but some people just don't really know how to take care of things. And so when you're screening your tenants, try to look for people who know how to take care of things. We all know the trick. Go out to their car and see how neat the car is. If there's candy wrappers and cigarette butts in the floorboards, they probably won't take good care of your house. It's kind of the same thing here, but you have the pride of ownership going for you. And I put investors here because I'm going to talk next about using other people's money to do this, and the neighbors, because there's a renter next to them, but it feels like it's someone who owns the house. And the neighbors like that more than they like having a renter next to them. So it's a win-win for everybody involved. What about the home condition? It has to be move-in ready. And it must be clean. That's really important. I underlined it there. In fact, John Burley, when he does this, he actually mixes 2 or 3 different kind of cleaners together, because he says some ladies like the smell of pine saw, other like a different smell, more like a soap. He makes sure that all those clean scents are in the house when people come look at it. It could still have crappy carpet and old countertops that are scratched up, but it's clean and they can see themselves moving in and fixing it up. Normally, you don't put in new kitchens or bathrooms like you would on a rental or on a flip. And normally you don't paint. You're letting them do that. If you paint it, they'll probably just paint it a different color anyway. Because it has to be move-in ready, you're fixing the plumbing, the electrical, the HVAC. You have to, you owe them a functioning hot water heater, a functioning heater, whatever's on the house. It should be working when they move in. And this works in houses with values based on what a typical blue collar family can afford. I met a guy out in Phoenix that's doing this in Australia on $1 million houses, because in Australia, an entry-level house, a nice entry-level house, but an entry-level house can be $1 million in Sydney or Melbourne. So there's a lady doing lease to own on gas stations. I mean, it's incredible what people can do. You trim, mow, you clean the yard, you make it look nice. You put the equity build in there. So you might buy that house for 100. It might really be worth 120 or 125. Let's say it's really worth 120, and at 4% a year, then you're trying to price this out somewhere where they can afford to buy it somewhere in that 10-year period. So you might put $140,000 on it and say, well, at 3.8, 4% appreciation, in 4 or 5 years, they should be able to get a bank loan for this. They have to pay closing costs, but they also have a $3,900 down payment that you'll give back to them that can be applied to those closing costs, and that helps them as well. You can index the price 3 to 4% a year if you want to. That's really up to you. So you're looking for these 3-4 bedroom lunch pail Joe houses. This is a typical house that you might buy. This is 208 Sherwood Drive. I bought this house earlier this year for $180,000. Now I'm keeping this one as a rental. I could probably sell this house already for $250,000. And these cranberry houses are just appreciating like crazy. So I want to keep them for a long, long time. So I'm putting a 30-year loan on these houses and keeping them as rentals. But I could very easily do lease to own. It's a blue collar B neighborhood. Most of the houses are still owner occupied. That's changing a little bit. There's a lot of people like me buying these houses because this is the old part of Cranberry Township. You can still buy houses here that cash flow. Most of the houses in Cranberry Township are 4 or 5 up to $750,000, and it's tough to get cash flow, but they typically need a little work. Here's one I did this year, 2314 7th Avenue in Beaver Falls. It's a 3-bed, 1.5 bath house, 1,300 square feet. I bought this house at $54,000, including wholesaler fee, paid closing fees. And unfortunately, I started a pretty major rehab on this before I went out to study doing lease to own. So I way over rehabbed this property. I put $33,000 into it. I probably should have put 15, but it is what it is. It still worked out fine. So I bought it for 49 plus the assignment fee, so 54,000. I put 33 in it, and I had it appraised at 110, so I was able to take out an $80,000 loan. That's 75% ARV, which is a 2010 ARM at 4.15%. I'm okay with the 10 ARM because I'm hoping to sell this thing before the 10 years is up. Keeping fees, $50 a month. Here are my taxes. My insurance is $108. Renting this thing out at $1,150 a year. The market rent on this house is probably $1,000, $1,050. I'm renting it out at $1,150, and I've locked in a 3% annual rent appreciation for the first 10 years. And I put a purchase price on this house at $124,900. Now, here's some things I cut and paste out of my spreadsheet that I use to analyze these deals. The cool thing is that I really burred. So I combined burr with lease to own. I only have $8,400 of my own money in this house. Now, I've pulled $80,000 out. So I've got $8,400 in here. If you look at my cash flow, year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and here it is cumulative, right? So if she stays in the house 5 years, that'll be $16,000 in cash flow. and then I'm capturing equity on the sale. So basically, my net cash flow, if she stays in her 5 years, is $72,000. So I'm putting 8,000 in. I'm making 72,000 in profit in 5 years, or a 57% return. If she stays in there 10 years, I would make 123,000. Or the return actually goes down over time, but it's still, the cash flow increases. But it's an incredible deal. You look at the cash flow I'm making on this house. My wife Kathy doesn't like these lease to own houses as much as our Cranberry houses because they're not quite as nice. She's not as comfortable with it. And I have to keep telling her, I'm going to make more money in 5 years off this crappy little house than I'm going to make on one of these nice Cranberry houses. So I'm buying nicer houses for the long term, and I'm doing lease to own on some of these houses on the outskirts of town and going after short-term cash flow. This is the house I'm closing on Monday. This is just up the river from Beaver Falls in Baden. I bought this house from a wholesaler, and I'll be closing Monday. If you look at the Zillow estimate, or maybe Redfin estimate for that house is 176. The rent estimate is $16.34 a month. I picked this house up for 110, plus a $4,000 wholesaler assignment fee. And I think after I'm done, I'll probably pull $100,000 out on a loan based on what I think ARV for. I'll probably have to put about 30,000 in this one too. It's a little more than a typical lease-to-own property. The woman's husband died 5 years ago, and she completely neglected it for 5 years, but it's still going to be good. I'm figuring $5,000 of holding and miscellaneous costs. Take a $2,900 closing costs on selling it, some refinancing costs. The rent I'm figuring is $1,520. That's very conservative. If I can't beat that, something's wrong, but I like to be conservative. I'll raise it up 3% a year, and I'll put a price on it at $189. You see the Redfin estimates at 176, but even at only 189, I could probably do better than that, but I'm still capturing a decent amount of appreciation. So here's what I think it will look like. I'll have $36,000 down payment, etc., cash in on the deal, and if they stay in the house 5 years, then the cumulative cash flow will be $27,000. And if they sell it, I'll make $96,000, which is a 30% return. So the returns are really great and awesome with these. I have a spreadsheet that I use, and let me park that for now, and I think we'll have time, and I'll come back and show you the spreadsheet that I'm using to analyze these deals. So this spring, I went out to Phoenix for 10 days, and there's a guy out there named John Burley. He has been doing this for a long time. He teaches people how to do it. He's a guru, but he's probably a guru. But I didn't spend a lot of money with him. I paid, I think, $1,000 to go out there for 6 days of training, and I had a few days off in between 2-3 day sessions, and just sat and listened to him talk and go through the details. He gives you all the contracts, etc. So it really didn't cost me too much to get into this. Now, he does sell something called a black card membership. So when I was out there, there were 3 other guys from Pittsburgh and me that were students there. The other 3 bought a black card membership, which is $30-some thousand a year. I decided not to do that because the real focus of that is raising other people's money and investing. And I'm probably not too interested in doing that for about 3 more years until I hit maybe retirement age in my W-2 job. I did something different though that I'll talk about to get that $30,000 of value. I went about it a little bit differently without paying the 30,000 bucks. But what John teaches you is to use other people's money. And this is a very powerful thing because as investors, no matter what we start out with, sooner or later, unless we're doing perfect burring, we're going to run out of cash. And you got to start looking for money, partnerships, hard money, whatever. So what he teaches people to do is to go out and raise capital. And what he teaches you is you pay yourself $10,000 up front on every deal. So every investor you get to buy a house, you pay yourself $10,000 up front. That's your fee to set up, all the legal structure, to do the groundwork, etc. So you're paying yourself $10,000. And people say, what do you do to earn that? Well, you're buying a $100,000 house, and by putting someone in at least to own, you're making the value of that house $135,000 to that investor. You have earned that $10,000 fee as soon as you do that. So don't worry about collecting the fees. People with a lot of money are used to paying fees on their investments. They normally don't question that. So this is what he teaches you. Returns after management fees, 10% of rent. So not only are you paying yourself $10,000 up front, you're also paying yourself a 10% management fee out of the rent that's coming in. So you're paying yourself there. Actually, the way these deals are structured, you're kind of only getting half of that because you're splitting the profit with the investor. So you're really only getting 5%. So a lot of guys don't do the management fee because it sounds bad. I'm charging you 10%. You're only getting 5 out of that. They just say, forget the management fee. Let's just find a really good deal where I don't need that. You set aside a $5,000 reserve. So if they give you 100 grand, you're taking 10,000, paying yourself, you're taking 5,000, you're putting that in a reserve. What's the reserve for? The reserve is there in case someone moves out of the house and it's vacant a couple months. You may have to do some minor work to it. You may have to go a month or 2 without someone paying the mortgage for you. That's what that reserve is for. If that happens, you put the next person in the house, and then as they start paying rent, you replenish that $5,000 reserve. Someday when they sell the house, that reserve goes back to the investor. You're paying a preferred rate. So you're going out, you're finding someone, a doctor that hates the stock market, that got burned. He's got $1 million in a self-managed 401k or in the bank, earning 1% a year, but he wants a tangible asset. So you're making him a preferred partner. You're saying, I'm going to pay you the first 5% of profit. Everything above that, I'm going to split with you. So they're investing, hoping to make 5%. Every year you're calling them, or every quarter you're calling them and saying, hey, good news, you didn't make 5% this month or this quarter, you made 10%, you made 12%. So they're very happy. So you're splitting the cash flow after that first 5%. You're splitting the equity gain on the house. If you bought it for 100, you're selling it for 135. Half of that $35,000 is going to you. You're splitting the loan pay down. If there's a mortgage on the house, a lot of times with investors, there is no mortgage. They're just paying cash for the house. So you're using other people's money. They're sick of earning 0.1 to 1%. They're happy to invest. A lot of people have $500,000 to $1 million to invest. If you find $1 million investor, you can probably buy 10 houses. And now you're making money on their money. So you're getting an infinite rate of return. And when they sell the houses, a lot of times they say, let's buy another one. Let's buy another one. They call those burly baby houses. A lot of times you're just reinvesting, reinvesting, reinvesting. Your main goal as an investor who's investing other people's money is to never lose money. That's more important than aiming for a super high return and risking their money and losing money. So they don't want that. This shows how you do that. You set up a management company. That could be an S Corp, it could be an LLC. The rent comes into that. The cash flow income goes into an LLC. So there's an LLC that owns the house, and there's a $5,000 maintenance fee and a checking account attached to that LLC. And the profits go out to the equity partner, and they go out to you as the managing partner. Your management company has an escrow account where you're collecting and paying taxes and insurance. There's annual rent increases. The lease goes up to the S Corp, local taxes and stuff into the escrow account. So this is a quick snapshot of how Burley says if you're investing with other people's money, what you should do. Now, I told you I went through the back door to get my $30,000 worth of training. So what I did was I funded a deal by someone who was already a Black Card Burley member. And I said, in return for me funding the deal, I want you to mentor me. And he agreed to do that. So I can call him, I can set up Zoom calls, we can go over contracts. So he's now my mentor on Lease to Own. This is the house we bought down in Monessen at 99 Pennsylvania Boulevard. We're getting close to putting an occupant in it now. I put $90,000 into the deal, and I'm getting a 5% preferred return, and we're splitting the rest. We're targeting $1,300 a month and an option price of $135. And you know, you look at that, we're targeting rent of $1,300, and the Zillow rent estimate is $18. Yeah, it's probably not going to be that hard to get those kind of rents, believe it or not, on this house. First, the Zillow estimate's a little low, but I'm pretty confident we'll do that. We believe we'll get a year one cash on cash return of 12.7%. And then if the people buy it in year 5, whoops, sorry about that, total profit will be $120,000. I'll get $58,000 of that. The managing partner gets $61,000. So he's going to make a little bit more than I do with the money that he's getting paid up front, the management fees and so on. This doesn't include depreciation and all the other advantages that you normally get. So I'm looking at this from the other side where I'm the equity partner, not the managing partner. Someday when I retire, I may decide to do this and I'll be the managing partner. And now I could buy one house and in 5 years make $60,000 on none of my own money. How many of those would you need to quit your job or to really have a great retirement, right? I mean, just doing a couple of these a year would be pretty incredible. And there's a guy in Pittsburgh, Josh Adamek, that's hoping to do 100 of these this year. So, you know, he's got a lot of investors. A lot of them are professional Pittsburgh ball players. They play for the Steelers and the Penguins and baseball, the Pirates. And he literally has enough money that if he could get the right properties, he could do 100 of these this year. So the money's out there, the opportunities are out there. And then in my spreadsheet, I don't know if I have time to get into that, but I can look at the cash flows to the managing partner, to the equity partner, and the cumulatives and so on. But you see, I'm putting $90,000 in, and we have the potential to make $120,000 in 5 years off that $90,000, or $200,000 after 10 years. So if you're the managing partner and you see this little infinity sign here, that's because you're making a return on $0 of your own money. That's an infinite rate of return. And if you really want to scale up, maybe if you're wholesaling, that's great. You're getting $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 a deal, sometimes more if you got the great property. But imagine doing this with none of your own money. And you know, you do a few of these a year and they just keep adding, cumulative. And after a while, you've got quite a bit of money coming in. I did mention there's a company called Home Partners of America. This is just one. they do this. And sometimes if you look at a home on Redfin, they'll have a little ad over on the side that says, buy this house now. You can literally, if you want to buy a house but can't get a loan, tell them this is the house I want on the MLS. And then they'll do the math for you and say, this is what we'll do for you on a lease to own. So I just took a house that was for sale not too long ago near where I buy my houses, 10 Dover Drive. I'm actually buying 5 Dover Drive, probably closing on that this month. So this is an area that I like to buy. And they tell you what the rent is. And if you do the math, they're increasing the rent about 3 to 4% a year. They're also increasing the home of the price 6.7% the first year, then 3.5% after that. But so that house was 179 on the MLS. They said you can stay in it 1 year, and then if you qualify for a loan, you can buy it for 191,000. So they're making 6.7% if you buy the house the first year, plus whatever they're getting in cash flow off the rent. And there are companies now doing this, big companies making a lot of money at it. Now, Rick Stivers, who's a member of this group, went with me out to Phoenix. He is now a black card Burley investor. And I want him at some point in the future to do the presentation, we call it, which is how you present this to investors to try to get them to give you money to buy houses. That will be part 2. Rick couldn't join us today. We're out of time anyway, but Rick will do the presentation for you. And since it's 10 till, I'm going to show one more slide. If you're not aware of this, you probably should be. In the new budget law, there's a provision that would basically demolish the use of self-managed IRAs. And probably, I was at the Pittsburgh REIA last week, and they asked for a show of hands. Half the people in the room were using self-managed IRAs to invest. So at the end of this year, I'll have 6 houses in my self-managed IRA. And if this law goes through, I'll have to liquidate those houses. I'll have to dissolve that LLC that's in my self-managed IRA. There'll probably be some strategies with how to deal with that, but this is going to have a chilling effect on people who use self-managed IRAs or who get money from people to invest from their own self-managed IRAs. So you may not be using one, but you might want to partner with someone that has cash. There's a good chance that their cash comes out of a self-managed IRA. So if you go to this website, there's a slide deck, there's a video now. If you're at all interested in self-managed IRAs or investing with that, you should be familiar with what's going to happen there and write to your congressman and say, this is ridiculous. It's a reaction to Peter Thiel, a big time investor that built up a $2 billion self-managed IRA by doing some funky stuff. And it's taking money out of Main Street and forcing us to put it into Wall Street. And it's the government telling us they know better what to do with our money than we do. And I know Richard loves that. So that's all I'm going to say about that. All right, I'm going to stop here and just see if we have any questions. I'll gladly answer
Brian,
what I can. Yeah.
Real quick question. Did you have to escrow the down payment for these?
Escrow it?
Yeah.
No.
No. Okay. Okay. All right. Great presentation. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a quick question. For these calculations, were you just doing them in Excel? And are they cash flow annuities? Is that how you, or is it just basic future value cash flow formulas?
Yeah, I have a spreadsheet that's I started out with an amortization table, then I put a bunch of stuff around it to make a rental, and then me and another guy modified it for lease to own. So it's just taking all the number and throwing it into a bunch of calculations and using, you know, that amortization table to figure out what the returns and stuff are.
are you willing to share this PowerPoint? I know a lot of work went into this, and I know if you're not, that's completely fine. I know there's just a lot of valuable information throughout this thing, and I would love to look over it in more detail.
Yeah, I'm willing to share it, but like a typical, lawyer, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm going to say I won't guarantee the accuracy of everything in that spreadsheet. I think it's pretty good. It's possible there could be an NOI calculation or something in there that's a little bit off. I worked on it, and another guy that's I worked with worked on it, but I'm happy to share it. I think it's a pretty decent tool. I have one for straight rentals, and then I have a version of that I've modified for lease to own. I can share it. Some of you might need to contact me for some instructions, like what's this for, what's that for, but I might even have a Loom video I made on how to use it. I'll see what I got on that.
That would be fantastic. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just drop my email, or you can drop
I'll work with Matt to get that out.
All right. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll do a summary of the call with everybody's contact information that presented. And Liam, just for the future, we have a database of the stuff that's on a Google Drive of all the files that we have between all the members here. We just collectively start adding stuff together. A lot of valuable information, spreadsheets and calculations and stuff. So as long as the presenter is good with sharing the information, I know, Brian, that was a hell of a lot of work put into that presentation. But some people like to keep their information to themselves after the presentation, but it would be really valuable to have. So I'll get you on that link.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, this is the spreadsheet up here, just very quickly. Everything in red you can modify, everything in black you shouldn't touch. And then, I've got a table of results, and then here's the amortization table. If you know much about Excel, you can probably, sort of go in and figure it out. It is a little complicated, but just remember, if it's, well, I guess that should be in red, but if it's not in red, you shouldn't touch it. I can even, do you want a property manager? You're paying finder's fees. There's just a lot of different stuff in here. So I have one for straight rentals, and I have one for lease to own. I'm happy to share it, but don't sue me when your margins are 3% less than you thought they would be.
Does anybody have any questions for Brian? Or I know Victor might still be in the room there. This is a ton of information. I really, really thank you, Brian.
Sure.
See, I told you, Matt. Brian was great.
That was a borderline professional there, Brian. You should consider doing this. And that was a hell of a presentation. I like that.
Well, appreciate that. Yeah. Investors like to help other investors, right? That's what we're here for.
Well, and if nothing more, if it opens your mind up to something else, another avenue or a different version of investing, the average person won't think of that approach. So, especially creative financing, that's huge. So,
yeah, like I said, it's amazing. I've never heard Bigger Pockets. I probably listened to 200 of their podcasts. I've never heard anybody talk about lease to own. Why is that? To me, it's a beautiful model, to make good returns. So I don't know.
Hey, Brian, it's Scott England. Just wanted to say thanks so much. That was excellent. And I look forward to being able to go back and rewatch all of that. Super great information. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Anybody have any other questions or information they'd like to talk about? We got about 3 or 4 minutes before we kind of wrap up here.
I just have a quick question. The that Google Drive link, where can I find that?
I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Yeah, right now it's just something I created to share with the group. It's not like a public thing, but I'll send you a link to it. It has everything there. It's not a ton of information. We've only been doing this for about a year and change, but there's the stuff there, and we're going to put the link to this whole presentation is going to be a YouTube video. I'll have that out and I'll send it to the group. So
awesome. Thank you.
Yep. All right, guys. Really appreciate everybody here. Thanks everybody for calling in. Hope it was worthwhile.
Thank you, Matt.
All right, guys. I'm going to end the video, and y'all have a good
Thanks,
weekend.
Matt.
See you
Thanks,
guys.
Matt.
Bye.